Detach emotionally before responding means you stop letting toxic people control how you feel in the moment. Because when you react from a place of anger or hurt, you give them exactly what they wanted, and now they get to decide how the interaction goes. So the smartest move is to slow yourself down. Take a breath and buy yourself time before you say or do anything. This pause lets you see the situation clearly, instead of through the filter of frustration, and it helps you decide if what they said is even worth responding to, or if it's just noise meant to get a rise out of you. When you create that small gap between what they do and what you do, you take back control and keep yourself from being dragged into their chaos. Toxic people thrive on reactions they want to see. You lose your cool because that tells them they have power over you. And when you detach, you deny them that satisfaction. You become like a calm wall that their words bounce off instead of sticking to you. And this doesn't mean you ignore your feelings. It means you give yourself space to process them privately so you don't hand them ammunition to use against you. Later, emotional detachment is a skill you build by reminding yourself their behavior is about them, not you. And the more you practice it, the easier it gets to stay calm when someone is trying to provoke you. Instead of firing back right away, focus on your body first, slow your breathing, unclench your jaw, and drop your shoulders. These small physical changes signal to your brain that you are safe and not in danger, which lowers the emotional intensity. Once you feel grounded, then decide if you even want to respond. Because sometimes the smartest response is none at all. When you do choose to speak, you can do it in a way that is calm, measured, and to the point, which keeps the situation from escalating and makes you look confident instead of defensive. Detaching emotionally is not about pretending nothing bothers you. It's about not letting someone else dictate your emotional state. Imagine you are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the tone, you set the temperature. No matter how hot they try to make things, you stay steady. And by doing this, you protect your energy, which is something toxic people will constantly try to drain. They want to keep you spinning in circles with arguments and drama, but when you remain steady, they eventually run out of fuel. One helpful way to detach is to remind yourself that not everything deserves your immediate response. You can say to yourself, I'll think about it, or I'll respond later, and then actually wait. This removes the urgency they're trying to create and gives you time to see things with a clear mind. Once you practice this enough, you'll notice you stop feeling the same level of anxiety or anger around toxic people because they no longer have the power to hijack your emotions. You've created emotional distance, and that distance is where your power sits. Detachment also keeps you from saying things you regret because toxic people love to twist your words and use them against you. When you stay calm and measured, you give them nothing to work with, and this frustrates them but protects you over time. This builds trust in yourself. You start to feel stronger because you know you can handle difficult interactions without losing control. And that confidence makes toxic people lose interest because they realize they can no longer get what they want from you. Setting clear, calm boundaries is one of the smartest ways to deal with toxic people because without boundaries, they will keep pushing as far as you allow them to. Boundaries are simply the rules you create to protect your peace, and they are not about controlling anyone else. They are about controlling what you allow in your space. When you state them clearly and calmly, you send the message that you respect yourself and expect the same respect back. And this is powerful because toxic people thrive on confusion and mixed signals. They use any gray area to test how far they can go. When you set a boundary, it doesn't have to be loud or aggressive. In fact, the calmer you are, the more effective it becomes because anger just feeds their drama, but calmness catches them off guard. A simple statement like, I'm not available for this conversation right now, or I don't tolerate being spoken to that way, is enough to set the standard, and then you follow through with your actions. Over time, they learn that pushing you past that line does not work anymore because you hold firm without turning it into a fight. Boundaries can look different depending on the relationship. Sometimes it means limiting how often you see someone. Sometimes it means changing the subject when they start gossiping, or walking away when they raise their voice. The key is consistency. If you set a line and then let them cross it without consequence, they will never take it seriously. Holding the boundary is what teaches them where you stand and teaches you that your peace is worth protecting no matter who you are dealing with. One of the challenges with toxic people is they often try to make you feel guilty for setting boundaries. They may call you selfish, dramatic, or cold, but that's just a tactic to make you drop the line. You have to remind yourself that guilt does not mean you are wrong. Guilt just means you are doing something new that prioritizes your own well-being, and that is exactly what toxic people don't want you to do. So when the guilt shows up, let it pass, but stay firm on what you decided. A helpful approach is to keep your language short and simple, because over-explaining gives them more chances to argue or twist your words. You don't need a long speech to justify your choice. You just need a clear statement and then the discipline to stick to it. Think of it as teaching them how to treat you every time you reinforce the boundary calmly. You train them to either respect it or lose access to you, and either outcome is a win for you. The most important part is not getting drawn into debating the boundary. Toxic people love to drag you into endless discussions to wear you down. But the moment you start arguing about your decision, you give away your power. The boundary is not up for debate. It is a statement about what you will and will not allow, and you don't need anyone's permission to enforce it over time. They may still test you, but with practice, holding your ground becomes easier, and eventually it becomes second nature to protect your space without guilt. Stop explaining yourself is one of the most freeing things you can do when dealing with toxic people, because every time you over-explain, you hand them more control and give them more material to twist back on you. Toxic people are not usually looking for understanding. They are looking for ways to keep you on the defensive. So the less you say, the less they have to work with. A short, clear statement like no, or that doesn't work for me, is powerful because it shuts down the endless back and forth that they use to wear you down and pull you into their drama. When you stop explaining, you stop giving them an opening to argue with you or manipulate your words. Toxic people often thrive on making you feel like you owe them a reason for everything you do. They poke at you until you start justifying yourself, and then they attack the justification. When you take that away, they lose their leverage. It can feel uncomfortable at first, because most of us are used to trying to make other people understand. But with toxic people, understanding is not the goal. Control is the goal. Keeping your statements short does not mean you are rude. It means you are respecting your own time and energy, because long justifications drain you emotionally and make you doubt yourself. The more you talk, the more chances they have to interrupt, twist, or minimize what you are saying. So by staying brief, you protect yourself from being pulled into a circular conversation that goes nowhere and leaves you feeling worse than before you said anything. Learning to say less is a form of self-protection that keeps you in control of the exchange. You can practice this by literally writing down a few simple phrases that you can use when you feel pressured to explain yourself. Things like, I'm not comfortable with that, or I've made my decision, and leaving it at that. It might feel too short at first, but over time, you will see how much peace it brings when you don't have to defend every choice you make. Toxic people will try to bait you by demanding why or accusing you of being unreasonable, but you don't have to take the bait. Staying calm and repeating your short statement shows them you are not going to play their game. Another important piece is learning to be okay with people being upset with you, because a big reason we over-explain is to make sure no one is mad or disappointed, but toxic people use that against you. They pretend to be hurt or angry just to pull you back into justifying yourself. So you end up doing what they want. The moment you accept that their reaction is not your responsibility, you free yourself from that trap and you start to act based on what is right for you, not on what will calm them down. This approach also keeps you from getting caught in arguments you cannot win, because with toxic people, no explanation will ever be good enough. They will always find a way to turn it back on you. So when you stop explaining, you end the cycle before it starts and create a sense of calm, control in the interaction. Over time, they start to realize that their usual tricks no longer work on you. And that shift puts you back in the position of power where you get to choose how much energy you give to the conversation and when it ends. Choosing strategic silence is one of the most underrated but powerful ways to deal with toxic people because silence is not weakness, it is control. When you stay quiet in the right moments, you take away the reaction they are craving and you keep the power in your hands. Toxic people often say things just to provoke you. They want to see you blow up or defend yourself so they can twist the situation when you give them silence. Instead, you deny them the satisfaction and force them to sit with their own words, which is uncomfortable for them, but liberating for you. Strategic silence is not about giving someone the silent treatment out of spite. It is about intentionally choosing not to engage in arguments that are designed to go nowhere. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is let them talk and say nothing back because your calm non-response sends a stronger message than any comeback could. It shows them that you are not going to be pulled into emotional games and that you refuse to waste your energy on conversations that will not change anything. This skill takes practice because most people feel pressure to fill silence with words, especially when someone is accusing them or trying to get a reaction. But when you hold the silence, you create space, and in that space, you stay in control. It also gives you time to think before responding. So if you do choose to speak later, you do it from a place of clarity rather than from impulse. Toxic. People expect quick reactions because that is when you are most likely to say something they can use against you, so slowing down disrupts their entire strategy. Silence can also be a way to shut down escalation. If a conversation is getting heated, the more you argue, the worse it gets. But if you stop responding and remain calm, the energy in the room begins to shift. It is very hard for someone to keep yelling or insulting when you refuse to feed the fire. This doesn't mean you are accepting their behavior. It means you are refusing to match their chaos with more chaos. You are choosing peace over proving a point, and that is a position of strength. One practical way to use strategic silence is to pair it with calm body language. Maintain eye contact, breathe steadily, and keep your face neutral. This communicates confidence without saying a word. It also makes it clear that you heard them, but are not interested in giving them the emotional reaction they want. Toxic people may try harder at first to provoke you, but if you stay consistent with your silence, they eventually realize that it no longer works, and they either change their approach or move on. Over time, using silence teaches people that you are not easily manipulated. It trains them to either speak to you with respect or lose your attention altogether, and it teaches you that you do not have to engage with every comment or insult that comes your way. You get to choose what deserves a response and what does not, and that choice keeps you calm, collected, and in control in situations where others might lose their temper. Walking away when necessary is the ultimate power move when dealing with toxic people because it shows that you are no longer willing to participate in their drama. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is physically and emotionally remove yourself from the situation instead of trying to fix it or win the argument. Walking away does not mean you are weak. It means you are strong enough to protect your energy and choose peace over conflict. It is a clear message that you value your well-being more than proving a point. Toxic people often rely on you staying engaged. They feed on the back and forth because that is where they get their control. When you refuse to stay in the game, you take away their power. They cannot keep an argument alive without your participation, and this forces them to deal with their own behavior without dragging you into it. Walking away is not about punishing them. It is about creating space where you can breathe, think, and reset so you do not get pulled into a cycle that leaves you feeling drained and angry. There will be times when walking away feels uncomfortable because we are conditioned to believe we have to stand there and defend ourselves. But staying in a toxic conversation only gives them more opportunities to twist your words or push your buttons the moment you recognize that nothing productive is coming from the interaction. That is your signal to leave calmly, not dramatically. You do not need a long explanation. You can simply say, "I'm done with this discussion," or "I need some space," and then actually follow through by stepping away. Walking away also helps you maintain your dignity, because no matter how toxic the other person is, you can still choose to act with self-control instead of being dragged into shouting matches or insults that you will regret later. When you leave the situation, you create a pause, and that pause keeps you from reacting in ways that hurt you later. It also teaches toxic people that access to you is not guaranteed. If they cannot speak to you with respect, you will remove yourself, and that sets a powerful standard for how you expect to be treated. This habit is not just about physical distance. It can also mean emotional and mental distance. Maybe it looks like taking a break from responding to texts or calls, or limiting how often you see them, or even deciding that this person no longer deserves a place in your life entirely. Distance gives you perspective and allows you to come back stronger, clearer, and less reactive when and if you choose to engage again. It gives you the power to decide on your terms, not theirs. Over time, walking away becomes a form of self-respect that builds confidence, because you prove to yourself that you are capable of protecting your boundaries and staying calm under pressure. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, and toxic people eventually learn that their tactics will not work on you anymore. And this either forces them to change their approach, or they stop trying to pull you into their negativity altogether. Either way, you win, because you are no longer sacrificing your peace for the sake of keeping someone else comfortable.